All right. Hello, everybody. We are live. Welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight. Let me get a couple things up and running here, and then we'll get started. There we go. We have Den here tonight who is helping out with moderation. So if you have any questions, comments in the middle of a story, leave them in the comment section. Den will make sure I see them in between stories, and you could see his comments as well. Remember, as always, you could support this channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant, and you can subscribe to my newsletter for free right over here. I appreciate that. We got a bunch of big stories here. And before I forget, two things. One is next week, I will be doing this on Wednesday night, same time, but one day early because I'll be out of town after that. And the second thing is, as a commenter pointed out, James Dobson is still dead. So there's your good news for the evening. I figured I would start tonight by talking about something I don't normally talk about, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses, because they had a big week recently. And listen, if you don't know much about the Jehovah's Witnesses, I think there are a few things even people who just have a casual understanding of that religion know about the believers, which is they can't receive blood transfusions, even in dire circumstances, and that's messed up. And they don't celebrate birthdays and they don't vote. And they are also, and this is one that maybe you're not familiar with, they are discouraged from getting a higher education. They're Jehovah's Witnesses are fine with kids going to high school, going through K through 12, but after that, the expectation is you are pretty much done with your schooling. They will make exceptions if you're going to trade school or you're going to a religious school. They have a religious school of their own. I believe it's called Bethel. But in terms of going to like a state university, a secular college, pretty much no. And they say this over and over in different ways. Like uh, in their publication, The Watchtower, they have said this for decades of why they discourage higher education. But this has been a major problem for Jehovah's Witnesses over the years because think about what happens when you don't have a college degree. It is harder to find higher paying jobs, it is harder to support your families. And uh, I actually came across this article from NPR that was from 2017. Check this out. This is just the headline: Lack of education leads to lost dreams and low income for many Jehovah's Witnesses. And they profiled this person who just he didn't have a higher education and it kind of stifled what he could do with his life. But look at this. Pew research shows that only 9% of witnesses get undergraduate degrees. That is well below the national average of 30.4% and the lowest of any faith group. And the likely reason for this trend is the religion's official warnings against college. So, why do they say this? Why do they say you shouldn't go to college? You can probably guess a couple of their reasons, but basically, more than anything, they see it as spiritually dangerous, right? It is a distraction from worshiping Jehovah. It is, you're going to come across people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, and they might be nice and they might be super smart. And you might be taken in by this idea that there are other options for you when it comes to religious belief, or dare I say it, non belief. You're going to be taught to think critically, and that's bad for any religion, right? So, all of this stuff is going to steer you away from faith. That's what they don't want. They can't have you getting out of their bubble. And so they don't want you to get a higher education. And the other reason they don't want you to do it is they think it's a waste of time because one of the things Jehovah's Witnesses teach is that the world's going to end sometime real soon. And you got to make sure you're spending your time going door to door and winning converts and staying in Jehovah's good graces. So why would you waste your time going to college when all of that shit's bound to happen any second now? We promise. Just you wait. Even though they've been saying this for like over 100 plus years now. And to that end, I want to actually, before I jump to a video, let me just show you this. This is from a watchdog site for Jehovah's Witnesses. They have a whole section about how the religion treats higher education. And I'm not going to go through all of this because there's so much, but just to give you an example, this is from their official publication, The Watchtower from 2019. What did they say about a higher education? The educational system in many countries teaches students not only practical skills, but also human philosophy. Students are encouraged to question the existence of God and to disregard the Bible. They are told that the theory of evolution is the only intelligent explanation for the origin of life. Oh my God, the horrors. And they go on to say some Christians who have pursued university education have had their minds molded by human thinking rather than by God's thinking. And that apparently is bad. There's another one here from the Watchtower of 2012, from June of 2012. Their confidence lies in a social and financial system that has no lasting future because the world's going to end. On the other hand, by pursuing a theocratic career, you will be pursuing truly worthwhile and lasting goals, unlike those college educated fools who get real jobs and they're just wasting their lives. And you will be following Jesus's perfect example. Jesus was a carpenter. He learned that shit somewhere. Such a wise decision will make you happy. It will protect you, and it will show that you are determined to live up to your dedication to Jehovah. But again, I have no problem with people going to trade school. But the idea here is that if you pursue any sort of higher education that makes you think more than it does you learning how to use your hands, it's just a waste of your time. But again, practically speaking, that doesn't play well in the real world today, where you might need a college education to make more money, where you might not be able to live on just one income if you have a family, which, by the way, the Jehovah's Witnesses want you to have. So here's another example of how much they really dislike higher education. A few years ago, they have, in the Jehovah's Witnesses, they have local leaders who are called elders. These are not people who went to like seminary and are trained for this. These are like random men who go to the church and who are thought to be the leaders of their congregation. People look up to them. They may be promoted to an elder, and now they get responsibilities that they really should not have, just being like random dudes. But there are elders in the Jehovah's Witnesses. And a few years ago, there was a video that leaked because it was part of a training module for those elders. Like, hey, elders, you're going to come across some situations. Let us walk you through how you ought to handle this. And one of these videos that was leaked, it involved a man, we're going to call him Brother Brown. And I guess he made a fatal mistake. He told his daughters that it was okay to go to college. And the question that this video wanted to pose to the other elders is, how should you all deal with this kind of blasphemy? And it's like a 6-7 minute video. I'm only going to play like a couple clips here that are shorter. But in addition to what they say in the video, I just want you to take note. If you haven't seen Jehovah's Witnesses videos before, like, the good guys, the main characters in the video, they are devoid of anything resembling a human personality. They are actors, but like they all play these people that you're like, are you for real? Because you sound like a Stepford wife right now. But I swear to you, this is how they want elders to react. Okay, here's clip number 1 from this training video.
I asked you brothers to review his qualifications as an elder. After we spoke, and Brother Brown had an opportunity to explain to me some of the decisions that he's made for his family. I'm aware that you brothers have considered this matter before, but since then, another one of Brother Brown's daughters have enrolled in a school for higher education, which raises questions as to how this affects the congregation. When we make decisions, it's important that we consider the conscience of the congregation as well as the elder body. Brother Brown, I know this can't be easy for you, and it's not easy for us either. Please be assured that we love you, and we only want what's best for you and your family. Remember, you're among friends here, so please feel free to express yourself and to answer any questions that your fellow elders may have. Brothers, we are obligated to put the interests of the congregation first.
Brothers, with all due respect, I don't agree with you that the congregation is disturbed about my or my family's situation. I've been in the congregation for 20 years. I know the publishers very well, and I'm sure no one is disturbed about my daughter's pursuing higher education. As far as my younger daughter is concerned, she was judicially reproved, but it wasn't announced to the congregation, so she's repentant. And no one has approached me expressing that they're disturbed about me supporting my daughters seeking higher education, trying to better themselves. It's not like they're leaving the truth.
Brother Brown is the only guy who sounds human at all, and we haven't even heard from the other actual elders yet. That was their overseer who was doing the talking, but you get the idea. This is a judicial panel to decide what the fate of Brother Brown's going to be, because he did this horrible, horrible thing. And so what happens next in that video is each of the three other men in that room, the three elders, they walk through why this is such a big deal. And I'm going to play one more clip for you from that same video that happens a little later in that scene.
Now, I know this is difficult for you. It's difficult for us too.
Don't tell me about being difficult. When we started this discussion, you all brothers said you love me and my family. Right now, I'm not feeling it. You've been nothing but negative. What about all that I've done for this congregation? I recommended most of you to be elders, and this is the thanks I give? Dave, I brought you into the truth. I'm crushed. And Dan, you're the youngest member on this body and have no children. What do you know about raising a child?
Brother Brown, I'm sorry that you feel that we don't have your best interests at heart. All I can say is that we're just trying to come to the best conclusion for everyone involved. Please, let him finish. That way we can have all of the facts on the table, and then we can move forward.
Just the finest acting you have ever seen anywhere. As someone is asking, that is an actual training video. That's all scripted. That is all fake. It's all fictional, but that is an actual training video they showed to elders to say, this is how you deal with a bad guy like Brother Brown. And in other parts of that video, what they say is, listen, you told your daughters that you want them to have the best life possible, but how could you if you're sending them off to college? That's clearly not the best life. They also said it had negatively affected the congregation because now someone else's daughter was thinking about going to college too. Oh no. And so at the end of this video, these guys basically agree that Brother Brown needs to be deleted. That is the word they use. He needs to be deleted as an elder because he's just broken the moral code right there. So the point is, I am not kidding when I tell you they actively discourage people pursuing a higher education, a secular higher education, and they always justify it with Bible verses and things like that, but this is what they've been preaching for decades. I want to show you one more thing, which is another video that the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses, like their ultimate end boss leadership panel, has said. In 2023, one of the members of their governing body, his name is Stephen Lett, he compared higher education to swimming in a pool full of sharks. And the implication was that, look, you might survive, but if there's any chance it may not end well, why would you want to risk it? And by the way, I'm going to show you this video. And if you've never seen Stephen Lett before, I shit you not, this is how he actually talks, and this is how he actually moves his face, and it's going to remind you of Heaven's Gate and the cult leader who did that stuff too. But let me show you this video.
Now, it's true Not all who pursue higher education in Satan's world experience those pitfalls. But is it a risk worth taking? That's what we want to get our young ones to think about. I like to use the illustration of a school of hungry sharks. Now, let's say the statistics are that if 10 people try to swim through this school of hungry sharks, 8 of them will make it. Only 2 will be eaten by the sharks. Now, would you reason, well, that's very good survival rate, 80% survival. I think I can do it. I think I can swim through this school of sharks. You probably wouldn't take that risk, would you? Well, what's the point? Well, for those who try to swim through and survive spiritually, the figurative school of hungry sharks of higher education, probably the survival rate is not as good as in our illustration. But in contrast, we want our young ones, and support their parents in this regard, to set spiritual goals such as pioneering. They can accomplish so much more than pursuing anything in Satan's world. Now let's.
And I'm thinking back to my own college education, and I'm like, Satan's world. I went to the wrong school because I do not remember it being a cesspool of hungry sharks and Satanism. But in any case, my point here is this is the sort of stuff they have been brainwashing Jehovah's Witnesses with for so many decades now, discouraging them from pursuing higher education, telling the leaders, local leaders of the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they got to make sure that they are passing along that message that higher education is a bad idea. They're not banning you from doing it, but they are actively discouraging it. And yes, I repeat, that was that dude's actual rubber face. Okay, so why am I telling you all this? Because last week, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the leadership, the governing body, they released an update. They do updates like Apple does with iPhones. And they said, hey, everyone, our religion has a new update. We're sending you the video tomorrow. And then they sent out the video, and it was like a 20-minute video where they talked about college. And one of the governing body members, his name is David Splain, he basically said, hey, listen, a lot of you are complaining about the higher education rules we have. We just want to clarify something. We are totally not against higher education. And if that sounds like, what are you talking about? That's totally what you are against. We've been hearing this our entire lives. Let me play a little clip for you from what he said in his update.
Many young people are asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? Of course, the best career is a life in full-time service. Even so, full-time servants need to support themselves financially. In some places, it's possible to earn a decent living without getting further education. In other lands, additional education is required if you hope to find employment that has reasonable hours and that pays fairly well. In such cases, a brother or sister may wonder, should I get additional education? If so, what type? Is it appropriate for Christians to pursue additional education? With this update, we'd like to clarify our understanding. While there are dangers involved in pursuing certain forms of education, basically, whether to obtain additional education or not is a matter for personal decision. And while an elder or a mature friend may discuss with us the pros and cons about obtaining additional education, no Christian, including the elders, should judge a fellow Christian's personal decision on this matter.
It is kind of amazing that this guy did it. And by the way, just someone was asking, do religions have updates like this? Does that mean God was wrong? And the answer is, according to them, no. God makes no mistakes. Jehovah is perfect, you guys. That's why he said we want to clarify this. We're not changing any rules. We're just interpreting it for all of you because it looks like there's some confusion. A lot of you seem to think we're against college. You guys, come on. Who told you that? Us? For the past 100 years? Never. Anyway, That's what these guys are like. So what did he say? He said college is a personal choice, and nobody, not even the elders, should be telling you, they shouldn't be judging you if that happens to be your personal choice. He did not apologize. He did not say whatever you thought we were telling you was totally wrong. He's just updating us by telling the believers that, it's up to you what you do with it, because we understand you might have legitimate reasons to want to do this. By the way, I don't know if you noticed the word choice he made. He didn't say higher education. He said additional education. I think because that maybe gives them some plausible deniability here. They're not supporting secular colleges and universities. They're also supporting trade schools. They're also supporting religious schools. But secular colleges and universities are included in that umbrella of additional education. Again, you could accuse them of being hypocrites, but their argument here is we're not changing anything. We're just clarifying this thing a bunch of you morons have been wrong about. But, that's your fault, not us. Let me just clarify what we're thinking. So on the one hand, this is good news. Like, that's a welcome change to a really horrible rule. I'd rather have them say it's a personal choice than our clarification is all colleges banned now. On the other hand, holy shit, can you imagine what it must be like if you grew up in the Jehovah's Witnesses and you were told college is bad and you skipped college, avoided it because of that, and now the religion is telling you, you guys, you were wrong about that. You could totally go. Who told you you couldn't go? I was reading the ex-Jehovah's Witness subreddit, which is always on point on this stuff. And honestly, reading through that was really heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And I just want to show you some of the comments I came across because they were disturbing. This is one. Came 35 fucking years too fucking late for me. Here's someone who didn't go to college because they were told they couldn't go. They shouldn't go. Here's another one. Imagine if you were a kid that just gave up a scholarship this past year for the org, or even years ago. Insanity. And this is not an anomaly. I read so many stories from people who said, I was such a good high school student. Maybe they were a good athlete as well. They got the chance to go to college for virtually no money, and they passed it up because their religion told them they should not be doing it. Here's another one that was disturbing. This update has me beyond disgusted. Because of these clowns in New York, where the Jehovah's Witnesses are headquartered, I never pursued nursing school and now struggle to make ends meet. All of a sudden, they want to cherry pick the Bible and decide that it's okay? What happened to you can't slave for two masters? Disturbing. Here's another one to the point I made earlier. I don't know if I believe this one, but I feel I'll share it with you. You could judge it for yourself. I had 9 academic scholarships when I graduated high school. I was pretty much guaranteed a scholarship to UCLA if I started playing for my high school. 9 guys from my school got into the NFL, and I was faster and stronger than all of them. Okay, buddy, me too. Up until that time that I became disabled, I only worked in call center jobs. 20 plus years of customer service tech support. I still wonder every now and then how different my life could have been if I had continued my education. And those last 2 parts there, I believe that, even if I may have doubts about the rest of it, which is you may have been stuck in a job that didn't live up to what you hoped to do with your life because that's the only option you really had. And so many former Jehovah's Witnesses have been saying on these forums, I know I had the potential to do more, but I never had the chance to prove myself because I never had that diploma. I never got to go to those classes. And I wonder what my life could have been like. There was one more here from those forums. I turned down a scholarship. I'm horrified. My parents are in their 70s, and they and I are all below the poverty level. I am having difficulty processing my rage today. And man, you feel bad for these people who are just now learning that, hey, everything you were taught about higher education is wrong. There is actually a forum for current Jehovah's Witnesses, not on Reddit, but elsewhere. And when I was reading through that, I was trying to figure out how are the true believers taking in this new information? Are they just, and by and large, they were like, wow, this is great news. Thanks, Jehovah, for clearing this one up for us. And they really can't process the hypocrisy that has just happened. But one person on this forum said something that was unbelievable. Check this out. Wow, I don't know how to feel about this update. I guess great for the young people of today. Now they can make informed choices about higher education and future employment without undue scrutiny and reprimand. At the end of the day, you're either going to serve Jehovah or not. Any environment that can take you out of the truth if you allow it, whether it's Harvard or Burger King, which is true. If you're going to be out in the world, anything could change your mind. So what's wrong with college at that point, right? But look at this. This would have been great for me to hear 20 years ago when I was a young honor student from a poor family. But it's too late now. All that sacrifice and struggle just to hear it's okay now. I don't know what to say. And that's someone who is a true believer, someone who's physically in and mentally in. And, I don't know what to say to that person if they would ask, but that's heartbreaking. And I hope some of this triggers in their mind this realization that, oh, our religious leaders are totally making it up as they go along. I mean, will they figure that out? I don't know. But I will say that guy I just showed you, that was the anomaly, because most of the people on that forum, they just said this new interpretation was just God's way of helping them out because they're struggling to make ends meet. Because the alternative would be admitting that the governing body has gotten this wrong the entire time for generations. And if the governing body got it wrong, that means Jehovah got it wrong, and they cannot accept that one. And so what the governing body has not explained, and I don't think they ever will, is, why did they make this change? What led to this product upgrade, this update today, recently? And there are theories everywhere. Young people are leaving the faith. How do you keep them in? Well, you tell them that some of the things they want to do are now permissible. Maybe that's a reason. There are parents who don't have degrees because they were told don't go to college, and they're struggling to make ends meet. And then their kids are growing up and they're like, I don't want your life. Insert Dawson's Creek meme. You know what I mean? Also, there are people with college degrees who are making more money, who seem to be enjoying their life. And by the way, that also means they have more money to donate to the organization. And maybe the organization was like, how can we make more money from the gullible people who belong to our congregations, right? And the answer is let them go to college, let them make more money, and we'll keep trying to reel them in. And maybe that means they have their tithes will be a little bigger. I saw one comment online that suggested they need more free lawyers to defend their asses in court. Possible. But I do wonder what the fallout will be from this. Like, what happens to people like that fictional Brother Brown I showed you earlier, who was deleted as an elder because he had the audacity to tell his fictional daughters that they could go to college? Because I'm sure that has happened in real life too. What happens to those people who are kicked out of their positions? Do they get brought back now? Do they get an apology letter from like the Jehovah's Witnesses Vatican? Do they get to return to those roles, or do they even still want them after the way they've been treated? I don't know. But this isn't just a policy reversal, I don't think. I feel like that update is a confession of spiritual abuse. Like, for generations, the leadership of the Jehovah's Witnesses, they crushed members' dreams. They crushed their ambitions. They sabotaged their futures. And they said, you're doing this not because we're telling you to do it, but because this is what Jehovah wants. And they told parents that sending their kids off to a secular college or university was a betrayal of Jehovah's wishes. Like, they shamed young people into throwing away their scholarships and throwing away the opportunities they may have earned in high school, and basically punished anyone who dared to build a life that was bigger than where they came from. Not saying that you can't do that without a college education, but a college diploma helps. And now, with no apology and no accountability, they casually just say an additional education is a personal choice and no one should judge you for it. everything else was just a misunderstanding somehow. But like, this is what the witnesses have always been. It's a machine that feeds off of the devotion of its members, and they are indifferent to the wreckage they are causing by pursuing their beliefs. Like, they were opposed to education because education might lead to independence, and independence might get in the way of their need to control you. And they always wanted to keep their people undereducated and underpaid and fully dependent on their kingdom halls. And all while preaching, this is what Jehovah wanted, right? And now, maybe out of desperation, though they'll never admit that, they are just pivoting. And they don't give a damn about any of the people who are now wondering, where was this advice when I was growing up? Because my life was stifled by what you told me. And now you're saying, yeah, that's on you. You were wrong about that. But we're right. And we're telling you now it's cool. Like, I would be pissed. I can't imagine what the actual former believers are dealing with after all this. All right, I'm going to pause there. I'll take some questions before I move on to the next story. What do we got here? Jesus didn't go to college, definitely trade school. Like I said, he learned to be a carpenter somewhere, but also it's not like he had a million options. I'm sure if there was like an actual school nearby, I don't know what he was doing at age 18. Training for what? What I want more specificity with that question. A lot of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses tell you to do is you don't need to go to college because we're training you to spread the gospel anyway, whether you're standing on a street corner, whether you're knocking door to door. But yeah, like I referring to that first video with Brother Brown, that was a training video to like how to be a good elder in your congregation. And one of the things you might have to do is punish someone who is not doing what Jehovah wants him to do. God updates his rules. God updates his rules all the time. Just ask evangelical Christians who fully supported abortion rights in the 60s and early 70s until they realized it was more politically beneficial to say abortion is evil from at all times. I have a book somewhere on my shelf that is written by a Christian apologist, like a very famous one, but it was published in like either the late 60s or early 70s, where he says abortion is totally fine. And then they just had an update. And they're like, you guys, it's bad now. We've all taken a vote. It's now bad. So don't vote for anyone who says it's okay. Happens all the time. Oh, thanks for that donation, Dan. Betty thinks saltine crackers are spicy. I don't know who you're talking about, but that applies to everyone I have played for you in the videos in this segment. Except Brother Brown. You know that guy likes it spicy. Anything else here? I'm surprised they don't discourage women to get additional education. A woman just needs a Bible and a cookbook. That is an interesting point. I'm surprised they did not say this applies to men only. But, there are plenty of women who have been leaving their fold too. Even recently, I don't think I made a video about this, but like the Mormon church updated its rules recently regarding what women were allowed to wear when they're out in public during their mission trips or something. And it's something they've been asking for a long time. And I don't know what the impetus was for making that change. But again, this happens all the time. And I think they're just trying to keep it as casual as possible in this case and just say, college is a personal choice. You do you. We'll save our sexism for other stuff, but not this. Do members of the governing body have or require a college education? What are their qualifications? That is a great question that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head, so I'm going to refrain from answering it, but I'm sure you could find their bios online. I know one of the qualifications is man. That's about the only one I know. Interest installing Patch Jehovah. I'm not even going to read this, but I appreciate the joke. Very well done. Yeah, very well done. All right, I'm going to jump to another story here. Give me one moment. All right. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy right over here. His name is Jack Brewer. He has a master's of education, and this is his like ministries page. His bio runs for a really long time, and none of it really matters. But I want to show you one thing down here. Brewer became an ordained minister in 2019, and he's committed all the efforts of his companies to help serve the kingdom of God according to the commandments of Jesus Christ. So this guy's a businessman. I think he has athletic background and a business background. He played in the NFL at some point, but also he's a minister, and he's a very Trumpy sort of dude. And the reason I bring him up is not that long ago, he appeared on Fox because they wanted to talk to him about Donald Trump unleashing the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Because, as Trump said, crime has gotten really, really bad there. Now, when he said that, he was lying because he's Trump. And in fact, if you look at the statistics, this is from CNN, violent crime in DC has fallen in 2024 and 2025 after a spike in 2023. So, like, crime has gone down, but Trump wants to basically send ICE thugs and the National Guard to whatever blue cities he can think of by pretending crime is bad there, and then just send in his people to try to be a dictator. That's what he does. Anyway, Fox News invited Jack Brewer to come talk about all of this stuff and what should people do to deal with the issue of crime. And I would love to play you this clip from Fox, but I am pretty sure that if I play any part of that, they're just going to demonetize this entire segment. So let me read to you what he basically said, and I will share this with you so you could see it here. What Brewer said is, it starts locally. First off, in these schools have to start back disciplining kids. They took the paddle out of the school and everything collapsed. We got to get the paddle back, Rachel. Listen, corporal punishment is the only way when you have a knucklehead kid that's willing to rob you or me at gunpoint with a car full of kids or anyone else. See, these things don't happen in states like Florida. We'll just pause there. Florida's notorious for not just crime, but the dumbest crimes. It's why Florida man is like a meme unto itself. So believe me, crime does happen in Florida. As Gavin Newsom has been posting all week long, other states have a much higher crime rate than California, but Trump only wants to focus on blue states and blue cities. Anyway, back to this dude. These things don't happen in states like Florida. You know why? Because if you carjack me, I'm liable to shoot you. That's a weird thing to say on live television. I'm going to scroll down here for a second. None of these kids go to church on Sunday morning. These kids don't have a fear of God. These kids don't think about heaven and hell. And that's the problem in our nation. We've let, excuse me, we've let these liberals go so deep. We've let these liberals go so deep into removing God from schools. Now these kids don't have spirituality. We got to put the 10 Commandments back in our schools. We got to get the fear of God back into the children of America. Every black man in America should feel despicable about the reality that our culture right now is terrorizing the streets of America. Those are real things that Jack Brewer said during a segment on Fox. And that last line aside, where he's just blaming black men for why crime is bad, which, yikes, what the hell are you doing there? But setting aside that racism and the myth that Florida has less crime because everyone can just threaten each other with murder now. And by the way, the lie that God has been removed from schools, because God has not been removed from schools. And why the hell would you say that? That's not even true. And the idea that religious or physical, a religion itself or physical abuse is going to solve this problem. That idea, that last one, that physical abuse would solve all of this is complete BS. And this is a thing that Jack Brewer has been saying for such a long time now. It's one of the reasons he gets invited to be on these segments, because his whole thing is, I know how to fix the crime problem because I'm a black man who's risen above it. That's his whole shtick. And he says the way you fix crime is you beat kids in school. And if you did that more often, crime would stop immediately. That's what he said. And a lot of people who are like that, a lot of people who say we should bring back corporal punishment in public schools, they might cite Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24, which is the verse that basically gave us spare the rod, spoil the child. I know you know this, but hitting kids has been really popular among fundamentalist Christians. Years ago, a couple, Michael and Debbie Pearl, wrote a book called To Train Up a Child, where they basically told adults how to properly hit their kids. And it is as awful as it sounds. They said Christian parents should physically discipline kids as young as 6 months old. And they said you should do it with, and I'm quoting here, the same principles the Amish use to train their stubborn mules. But obviously, the experts who have looked at this, they never say any of this stuff. They always say the opposite. This is from the, right here, where do we go? The American Academy of Pediatrics. This is the legitimate pediatrics group, not to be confused with the similar sounding fake one run by Christians. But the AAP says spanking harms children. Corporal punishment, or the use of spanking as a disciplinary tool, increases aggression in young children in the long run and is ineffective in teaching a child responsibility and self-control. In fact, new evidence suggests that it may cause harm to the child by affecting normal brain development. So that's what the experts in pediatrics are saying. But, you know, this guy has strong opinions that whatever, let's beat kids and just see what happens. So, by the way, there's always a comment when this comes up. I think I saw it in the comment thread where someone says, I got spanked as a child and I turned out just fine. And the answer to that is no, you didn't. You turned out to be an adult who thinks hitting kids is an okay thing. So no, you're broken. There's something deeply wrong with you. But anyway, what if you don't actually hit kids but merely suggest it as a possibility? Because that's another thing Jack Brewer is suggesting here. As any decent teacher could tell you, and listen, I spent over 7 years in a classroom. If your classroom is so chaotic that you think physical discipline is your only solution, or the threat of it is the only solution, you got to find a different job because teaching ain't for you. And by the way, if you think threatening kids with abuse is the only way to maintain order, you're just a bad person, period. What the hell are you doing? So none of those facts that I have just shared with you are accepted by right-wing abuse enthusiasts like Jack Brewer. Like, hitting a kid with a paddle is not going to stop that kid from robbing you when he gets older. If anything, what it teaches him is that violence is always a possible solution to do the thing you want to do. By the way, while younger generations are not into organized religion as much these days, the lack of forced Christianity in schools, which is something Jack Brewer wants, that's not the cause of societal problems. All right. I will say, forced Christianity, Jack Brewer said we should bring back the 10 Commandments in schools, bring back prayer in schools. Christianity in schools has not been a thing since like the early 1960s, where you force a religion onto people. And schools in red states, where the legislatures are passing 10 Commandments laws and trying to inject the Bibles in classrooms, they're usually the worst states in the country when it comes to education. Like, I would argue kids today have a far more nuanced understanding of religion than prior generations, largely because they've grown up in diverse environments. They have seen the harm that religious nutcases in government can cause. So we are in a more dangerous society today because of people who reject evidence in favor of religious mythology and conspiracy theories, and they love their guns, as we saw this week. That's way more dangerous to our society than the lack of religion. Anyway, I wanted to show you one other thing, because Brewer has been saying shit like this for a really long time now. And in 2022, he was invited to speak to a House Judiciary Committee panel during a session on how to end gun violence. And they brought in this guy to talk about gun violence. And what do you think he said was the solution to stopping like mass shootings? Let me play you a clip from that that panel that he spoke on.
If we are serious about addressing gun violence, then we need to first get serious about bringing the paddle and prayer back to our public schools. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will never depart from it.
It's the same shit. It's the same stuff he's been saying for years now. Violence and religion are his go-to solutions in a world that has been made worse by violence and religion. This guy doesn't want to actually help children. He wants to control them. He wants to dominate them. He wants to indoctrinate them. And he doesn't care if spanking kids or hitting kids breeds trauma and resentment and more violence. While mandatory religion in public schools, and of course mandatory religion would always be Christianity, that would undermine all the freedoms he claims to want to protect. Like, there are plenty of Bibles and religion in churches, but guess what? As we saw this week, that does not stop bad things from happening. That's not a solution to anything. Obedience should be learned. If you want to earn obedience, obedience should be earned through mutual respect, critical thinking, not fear. If you're using fear to win obedience, you're a bad person. But this is what happens when you're promoting an authoritarian government. Fear is your best weapon. It explains everything Trump is doing by sending his ghouls to blue cities to terrorize people as much as humanly possible. It's what he's doing to immigrants right now. Like, you use force to beat people into submission because you cannot earn it on your own. I mean, just was it this week that Donald Trump signed an executive order saying they would try to prosecute people who burned the American flag? Like, first of all, the First Amendment says you're allowed to do that. The Supreme Court has said you are allowed to do that. But if you want people to respect the country, you don't force that sort of rule upon them that says we're going to put you in jail if you symbolically burn a flag. Like, you give them a reason to actually love the country so they wouldn't want to do that. But none of that ever crosses the mind of Republicans these days. So the fact that guys like Brewer are called on to speak to Congress, to go on Fox and tell people what the solution to violence is, and his answer is always, let's beat children from a young age. Let's shove Jesus into all their faces. Like, that's always their solution to crime and poverty and broken communities. And it all stems from this myth that America's problems come from a lack of God or a lack of abuse instead of a lack of justice and opportunity and equality. And I wish some of these people who are in his vicinity or the interviewers questioning him, like, we would be so much better off if they called him out on that stuff. But he doesn't appear on real news stations. He appears on Fox, or he appears in front of Republican panels where he can just say whatever he wants and not get grilled on it. But I just wanted to share that with you because he's a very horrible person. All right, what other questions we got here? Thank you for that donation, Olivia. Damn, those people love abusing children. Yeah, and by those people, who are we talking about? Republicans, religious zealots? I mean, take your pick. It's all the same at this point. The cognitive dissonance of Christians is amazing. They say they're all loving while abusing innocent children. Yeah, I mean, the hypocrisy that you point out there. They always say our God, our religion is about love. And then there's a laundry list of all the things conservative Christians do that are the opposite of that, right? Like how many women they've put in literal life-threatening situations because of their zealotry on abortion. How many LGBTQ people they have terrorized because they just can't accept anything out of like a cisgender binary system. I mean, yeah, the history of Christianity, especially conservative Christianity, is that they claim to be about love and then their actions say the exact opposite. And their voting record says the exact opposite now. Actually reading the transcript makes the scary absurdity obvious. Yeah. When you just see it on paper, it's like, who the hell would say something like this? And again, Brewer is a good speaker. He speaks with conviction. It's why conservatives might want this guy to speak places. But then you look at what he actually says, and it's horrifying. By the way, Trump does the exact same thing. Like, he'll do these 3-hour long, everyone love me, say nice things about me cabinet meetings. But then you look at the transcripts of how he answers certain questions, and it's all rambling, and he says insane stuff. And when you read the transcript, it never makes any sense. Like, kudos to Gavin Newsom, who I'm not really a fan of, for just imitating Trump in his tweets and sounding like a crazy person, because yeah, that is what Trump is like, and we shouldn't get used to that. Because the 10 commandments in churches stop adultery. They also don't stop all the other commandments either. People lie, cheat, steal in churches all the time. They murder people, even if they are religious. The 10 commandments are not going to stop people from doing the thing they were going to do. It doesn't work in churches. It's why they don't spend much time trying to argue that we should put up 10 commandments monuments inside of churches, because they don't care. They just want to do something symbolic and performative. That's why they want them in public schools and outside courthouses. All right, I'm jumping to another story. Go sign up for that newsletter now if you haven't already. Okay, here's an interesting story, because when I first heard it, my instinct, I will be honest with you, my instinct is, what has the Christian done wrong now? And then when I looked at the actual situation, it's like, oh, I'm not actually mad at the Christian in this situation. So let me show you who the Christian is that I'm talking about here. This is her. Her name is Sabrina Steffens. She's a senior in high school. She goes to Grand Island Senior High School in Western New York. It's really close to Buffalo, New York. And I have no problem with her. Please don't. I know this is YouTube and whatnot. Don't harass this poor child. But she's a senior in high school. And last year, when she was a junior, they do a thing at her high school where they say, hey, if you're about to be a senior and you have a parking spot, which a lot of high schools in America, they let students have parking spots. If you have one, if you give the school $50, we will allow you to decorate your parking spot. And it's like a fundraiser that they do at the school. The kids love it because they get to personalize their parking spots. The school likes it because that money is used for a good cause. I have absolutely no problem with that sort of situation. That's fine. And the school actually says we get to beautify the campus and build school spirit. And hey, the students get to showcase their personality. That's awesome. Good for them. Fine. So the school only had a few rules when it came to this thing that they did. They said no profanity. You can't do anything offensive. No gang symbols. Pretty normal guidelines there. And also, just to be safe, they said all the students who want to decorate their parking space, you have to submit a sketch of what you want to do in advance, just so we know what you're going to paint before you go ahead and actually paint on the ground, right? That's also fine. So last May, Sabrina submitted a sketch of what she hoped to do. And let me share that with you. This is what she submitted as a sketch. And you could see there's a cross at the top. God is love. He loves you. There's a Bible verse there, John 14:6, whatever. It's a Bible verse. Listen, whatever you think about Christianity and the Bible, I will say, who cares? This is fine. Turns out that student, Sabrina, she's also the president, I think, of the school's Christian after school club. So this is very much an extension of her personality. And so, I don't know, listen, saying God is love is way better than other Bible verses you could cite if you wanted to. So that was her submission. And it turns out the school was not happy with that. And not only were they not happy with it, I want to show you one specific thing, if I could find it all of a sudden, that they said about it. Check this out. This is from a letter that was sent to the school later on. Assistant principals Mr. Hernandez and Miss Pelt met with Miss Steffens and informed her design was inappropriate and that none of it would be approved. Specifically, they told her, if we had to approve your cross, we would have to approve a satanic symbol. And they told this girl she would not want to attend a school like that. God forbid there's a little Baphomet drawn into the parking lot. They also told Miss Steffens that including a cross symbol would only be acceptable if she disguised it as a letter T. That's a silly one to me. Like, why? The cross would still be there. Either you're okay with the cross or you're not. But disguising it as the letter T, like, why are you telling her if you hide it, we'll let it slide? That's a weird thing to say. When Miss Steffens asked why she previously had been permitted to include scripture references on Bible Club posters, this administrator responded, I just let that one slide. So they're basically telling her she can't have this Christian design on her parking spot because it's overtly religious, but she can keep the cross as long as she pretends it's the letter T. It's just a weird thing for administrators to say. And also, the bigger problem with what they're saying is if we let your Christian painting, if we give an okay to your Christian painting, we're going to have to say yes to Satanists. And like, that would be horrible. Don't make us do that. You don't want to go to a school where there are non-Christians around, would you? This is New York. We don't have anyone who's non-Christian here. Weird. So anyway, a couple of weeks later, she submitted another poster. I'm not sure why she felt the need to do that, but she did. And this is what she submitted the second time around. Let your light shine. I'm not sure if she spelled your right, but whatever. That's besides the point. But look at the word light. Let your light shine. She did exactly what they told her to do. She has the cross, but it's disguised as the letter T. So she did the thing they wanted, right? And if you look down here, there's a different Bible verse. His will, his way, my life. All right, whatever. She's quoting from Jeremiah something. I don't even know what verse that is. But again, in terms of Bible verses that you want to quote, there are some really bad ones. But if that's the one you're going with, like, who cares, you guys? It's fine. It's not a big deal, right? Right. She did everything the school asked of her. But guess what? The school still said, no, you can't do that. They still told her it was not okay. And this time, look at this. This is also from the letter here. Let me bring this up again. School officials also rejected Miss Steffens' second design. Specifically, they censored the scripture reference, even though the design did not even include what that Jeremiah Bible verse was. For context, Jeremiah 29:11 is a very common scripture cited to commemorate graduation, stating, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. But I guess that was really long, so she's like, I'll just say Jeremiah 29:11. The administrator called Miss Steffens into another meeting into his office on June 13th, where he informed her she had to remove Jeremiah 29:11 and her paraphrase of some other Bible verse. And then he suggested the phrase, you can have he is king. That will be okay, but you just can't say the word God. You can use a synonym for God, but you can't actually say God. You can reference the God, but we think you can get away with it as long as you disguise the cross and you pretend it's the letter T, and you don't say God, but you say king instead. We think that's secular enough that no one's going to know what the hell you're talking about except for you. What the hell are they doing at this school? Like, this is just, it's not just out of hand, it's just stupid. So what did this girl do? She did not have to do anything at this point, in my opinion, because what she submitted was fine. But guess what? She submitted a third drawing. She submitted a third one, and here's her third drawing. Is that an L? That's an L now, sure. Let your light shine. That is a cross in the word light, but it's disguised as the letter T. There are some confetti. I don't know what those are supposed to be. Stars, I assume. Sure, why not? And then what do we have here? In the tree, he is king. So she did exactly what they told her she could do. And this is the sketch she submitted. Like, can I draw my parking spot so it looks something like this? She's even going around saying, look, that's going to be dark green. This is going to be light green. There is, by the way, a snake in the tree. Maybe that's a reference to Genesis 1. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. So she had her third drawing. And the school finally said yes to that design, which, okay, that's fine. But at this point, and I don't know what the situation is, at some point between design number 1 and the acceptance of design number 3, all of which happened like in May and June of this past school year, till the end of the summer when they could actually decorate their parking spots, lawyers got involved. Lawyers from the right-wing First Liberty Institute got involved, and they're the ones that sent this letter to the school documenting everything I just shared with you and basically asking the same question I'm asking you now, which is, hey, school, what the hell is wrong with you? What are you doing here? And they basically, what First Liberty said, and normally, you know this, I've talked about them or other similar groups before. Normally, these people weigh in on religious freedom cases that are batshit crazy and they're wrong. And I don't care that I'm not a lawyer and they are. They're still wrong about this stuff. But on this one, I find it very hard to be like, they're wrong about this. I happen to think they're right about this. But they basically said, look, other students are allowed to personalize their parking spots however they want, and the school has nothing to say about that. So if you are going to allow this limited public forum where people are allowed to decorate their parking spots using whatever symbols that are appropriate, school appropriate, they're not offensive, if you're going to let them do that and promote sports or promote clubs that they're in, you can't say no to the Christian girl who wants to promote Christianity, which again, that is pretty much in line with what the Supreme Court has been saying for years now. So I think they're making a fair point there. You can't tell students they're allowed to decorate their parking spots, but then reject a particular type of religious reference. And again, they are right about that. When it comes to invocations at city council meetings, this is what the Supreme Court has said too. You can have invocations during city council meetings, but you can't say no to people because they belong to a different religion. So as long as Satanists, humanists, Hindus are allowed to speak in the same fair way that a Christian would be able to, invocations are fine. What if you have a flagpole outside City Hall? We've talked about that on this channel too. If you're allowing outside groups to put up their group's flags outside City Hall, then a Christian group is allowed to put up their flag too, assuming the process is the same for everybody. They have done that as well. And the same thing applies to parking spaces at school, right? You can't refuse a design just because it happens to promote religion. And by the way, the other side of that is if a student submits a drawing that promotes Satan, or that has a little Baphomet, or puts like the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple, you couldn't say no to that either. By the way, you could also write, hypothetically, if there are any atheists from that high school who want ideas, you could also say, God doesn't exist, but I love you, which I don't think is offensive at all. But guess what? That would be allowed as well. Because if you're going to allow a religious message to go on those parking spots, you might as well push the envelope and see what else you can get away with. So after all this, last week, First Liberty, they sent out a press release for this case, and they basically said, right here, the school has caved. We are pleased that the school district changed course and will allow Sabrina to truly express her deeply held beliefs in her design. The First Amendment, we know. But basically, First Liberty said they will allow her, it says it right here, they will allow her to design her parking space with her original design. So submission 1, that was more overtly religious than submission 3 was, the school said, sorry, we take back everything we said. Your initial design is fine. Please don't sue us, right-wing crazy people group. So they also included this picture of Sabrina starting to paint her original design in her parking spot. And good for her. She has every right to do this. I'm sure it's fine. I don't have a problem, even if I disagree with her. One other thing I wanted to share with you is that the school superintendent, he shared a statement with the Christian Broadcasting Network. Brian Graham, superintendent of Grand Island Central School District, issued a statement explaining the district's stance and its commitment to fostering an inclusive school environment that respects the rights and dignity of all students. We also take seriously our responsibility to uphold constitutional principles, including the First Amendment. While we strongly dispute any assertion that our policies or decisions violated the rights of any student, you guys, they totally did. The Board of Education and district leadership, after careful consultation with legal counsel, after talking with everybody and then listening to our lawyers tell us, what the hell are you people doing? You're going to get us sued. We have decided that the student in question will be permitted to proceed with her original senior parking space design. It's a horrible statement. Like, just freely admit, listen, we didn't want to get sued, and we screwed up. This was on us. Sorry, Sabrina, you can have your parking spot. That's what they should have said. And they also said, the superintendent also said, in the future, we're going to look back at our policies to see if we need to make any changes in how we vet submitted designs. I mean, the only way to get out of this, if you are the school, is to get rid of that program altogether. That's it. But what you can't do is say students can decorate parking spaces however you want, except if you're promoting religion, or especially a religion we don't like. Can't do that one. I mean, they can make clear to everybody that this is another thing they could do. If they don't want to get rid of the program altogether, they could just make clear to everybody political and religious designs are fine now, as long as they're not offensive. And then just, I don't know, the smarter idea is just get away with this program. There are other ways to fundraise. You don't need this particular way, which opens the door to a lot of messages and designs you may not want to see. I don't have a problem with what the Christian girl drew, but I could totally see a scenario in which an incoming senior pushes the envelope and draws something that could get the school in trouble, but which they cannot legally say no to. And if you want to avoid that scenario entirely, you get rid of the program. That's the way to do it. I happen to think her initial design should have been approved last year. I think the school was, it's ridiculous that the administrators didn't anticipate something like this would happen. I don't know if they thought nothing controversial could possibly happen with this. And one reason I know that is because they are not the first school district to do a seniors can paint their parking spaces program. In fact, in 2018, there was another high school, this one's in Texas, where they did the same thing. And look at this article from 2018. One student who asked not to be named said the principal told her to make it obvious that her picture of the Taj Mahal was not a mosque. The girl was from India, but the school's like, don't make it look too Islamic, wink, wink. Jesus. Another student submitted a painting meant to be a self-portrait showing an African-American girl wearing a shirt that read Black Girl Magic. And that girl said the school did not feel comfortable with that phrase and only approved the painting after she removed it. Holy crap. And then, however, the district approved a Blue Lives Matter flag, and there were also pictures showing multiple parking spots with Bible verses painted on them. So they were cool with Jesus, they were cool with conservative politics, but Black Girl Magic and the Taj Mahal were too offensive for their tastes. I don't actually remember what happened with that Texas school, but the point is, if you allow students to paint their parking spots, you're gonna have to make these judgment calls, and it's never gonna go well. So why are we doing this? Here's one last thing. Then I'll be done with this story. One other thing that kind of upset me is I saw so many right-wing media outlets posting about this story, and they were all saying, hey, this New York school caves after a Christian girl wants to paint her parking spot. And I get why they're doing that. Like, it's not often you see a public school discriminating against a Christian kid. and the school basically saying, yeah, you were right and we were wrong. So I get why they're posting it. But every time you see a story, and I've covered a lot of them, where an atheist or a Satanist takes advantage of the same kind of open public forum, whether it's to deliver an invocation or to put a flag up a flagpole or to put up a display in a state capitol during December, those same legal groups and media outlets often frame it as anti-Christian or offensive. And if they don't do that, they just avoid it altogether. They pretend like, all right, you guys can be mad about it, but we're not going to support the rights of non-Christians to do the things we get to do, right? And so here's what I would like to know from First Liberty and conservative media outlets that were writing about this story. If another student submitted a design for this parking lot spot, painting the parking space, if they submitted a satanic symbol or an atheistic message, would you, as an outlet, or First Liberty, as a conservative lawyer, would you support that student's right to do so? Based on what I saw from the letter they sent to the school, I have to believe their answer is yes, but I have never heard them say that outright explicitly. I want those outlets and those groups to say, we think this Christian girl should have her design approved because the school can't come against her just because it's a Christian promoting design. But by the way, while we're at it, if a Satanist wants to paint something or an atheist wants to paint something, we will have their backs as well. I've never heard them say something like that. I want them to say something like that explicitly because I think that would help some of us out when we are seeing stories of atheists trying to do exactly what this girl tried to do and then getting dinged for it by government officials or school administrators or whatever. And if you don't give us a clear-cut, explicit answer to that, I don't think you have any business taking a victory lap on the back of the Constitution like they did with this girl when they are not championing the same sort of thing when a non-Christian does it. That's it. I think the girl was right. I think First Liberty was right in this case, but now I want to see them use that same firepower to help out atheists and Satanists and other people doing the exact same thing. That's all. All right, I will pause there. What other questions, concerns we have here? I wouldn't complain about that other than that eye roll. Did I do an eye roll? I probably did do an eye roll, but I agree. Like, whatever, it's not the painting I would have gone with, but that's the whole point. This is her personality. She can do what she wants. If that's what she wants to do, it's not offensive. She's wrong, but who cares? What other submissions were denied, I wonder? I had the exact same question myself, and I don't know the answer to that. And frankly, I don't think the school should tell anybody. I don't need to see some high school student's sketch for what they wanted to draw. Like, it's not public, but I am curious. Like, I want to know what else they said no to. Is it just because it was overtly offensive? Or is it because they said no because there was a political message or another religious message? We don't know. And I haven't seen any other students saying, oh, the school rejected my drawing too because of X, Y, or Z. Didn't you say they allow her to have a Christian group in school? Yep, she's the president of their school's Christian club, which again is fine because Christian clubs are not in danger. They can absolutely have an after-school Christian club, just like there can be an after-school Satan club or a secular student alliance affiliate at these same schools. Man, could the public schools in Oklahoma make a crap load of money to decorate parking spots with Christian rhetoric? Walters would love it. Oh, no. Oh, we are giving him ideas now. But I have to think in Oklahoma, especially in a deeply red state, that's where you're also going to see more pushback from students who are not in that majority group. This is maybe a tangent, but I used to work with the national organization that helped out atheist groups on college campuses, the Secular Student Alliance. And one of the things that happened is if you go to a state like Massachusetts or Vermont, it was really hard to get an atheist group started because they didn't feel a need to have one. Everyone around them is practically an atheist. But if you went to Alabama or Mississippi or Texas, not only were there a lot of atheist groups at colleges across those states, there were really big ones because those students had nowhere else to go. They needed that outlet. And so I wonder if in a state like Oklahoma, you would actually see more stories like this one, except from the other perspective, where you see a Satanist or an atheist trying to draw something that crosses the line, while the Christian ones are all accepted. I don't know if that would happen, but it could. All right, I'm jumping to another story here. Let me pull up some stuff. Give me a moment. All right. Taking a drink really quick. Okay. There was a legal decision, a judge's ruling that came down recently that I was not happy with. But in order to understand what that judge said, I need to take you back a little while to a story I may have covered, but it may have been like a year or two since I've talked about it. So you all know what you're looking at here. That's Tim Walz of Minnesota. And a couple of years ago, 2023, in May of 2023, the legislature there passed their $72 billion 2-year budget. And people were very excited about the things that were in it. So that's all well and good. But there was one provision in this budget that caused some controversy, and it involved something called the Post-Secondary Enrollment Options Act. So Post-Secondary Enrollment Options, PSEO. And basically, since 1985 in Minnesota, they have had this thing called the PSEO program, and it lets high school students take college classes that they can get credit for at state colleges and universities. So you might take it because you want to earn college credit. You might take it because you just want to get a sense of what a college class's rigor is like. Now, most of you who don't live in Minnesota, maybe you're like me, you took advanced placement classes or international baccalaureate classes. Those are all really similar to what they're doing in Minnesota too. And Minnesota, I think, has those options as well. But this is a state-specific program, like the advanced placement program, that is privately run. This is a state-run program, and it was actually really cool because the students who take part in the PSEO programs, their tuition is covered, they get their books paid for, and they get their classroom fees paid for by the state. And the way this works is if a college in the state of Minnesota wants to offer a class to these high school students, and these students sign up to take the class, whether it's on campus or virtually, the state will reimburse the college for the money they would otherwise make from it. So it's a really amazing program that, it's for high achieving high school students, and good on them. If they earn a good grade, they can get college credit for it. I read some articles where one kid who attended Minnesota State University said he saved $20,000 because he graduated with 80 PSEO credits. And when you factor it in scholarship money, his college degree cost him very little money. That's how amazing this program can be. In fact, let me show you one other thing here. This is from a finance report from the state of Minnesota. But look at this. Program participation for fiscal year 2022, almost 8,000 public school students, 1,500 non-public students, and 1,780 homeschool students attended classes at a college, taking a total of over 180,000 credits. This is all PSEO programs. And the state payments directly to the schools doing it amounted to over $41 million. So this is a popular program that saves high school students a lot of money if they're going to college in the state of Minnesota. That is a fantastic program altogether. So very cool. So what did they do in the 2-year budget that's causing people to flip the hell out? When Tim Walz signed that budget, this is the thing people were talking about, because in a section about the PSEOs, they said this at the very bottom. This is what they added. An eligible institution, a college, must not require a faith statement from a high schooler seeking to enroll in one of their courses, or they can't base any part of the admission decision on a student's race, creed, ethnicity, disability, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, or affiliations. So in short, the new budget said two things. Even if you're a Christian college that is offering these classes, and you're like, let's pretend you're Liberty University, but in Minnesota, and you're offering Beginners Chinese 1, which is a real class one of these schools offered. If you're offering that class, and if you attend Liberty University, you got to sign a statement saying, I believe in Jesus. I believe that marriage is only between a man and a woman. And the Christian school makes you sign something like that. What this budget amendment said is, if you're part of this PSEO program, even if you're a Christian school, you cannot make high school kids sign a faith statement that you might have your college students sign. And also, if they are gay, if they are bi, if they are trans, you can't say no to them, even if you're allowed to do that if they were applying to your college. So if you want to get taxpayer dollars for participating in this program, you got to follow the non-discrimination laws of the state, and you can't force these kids to sign off on your faith statement. You can do that at your college, but you can't make the high school students do it if you're offering this program. Basically, if you're playing our game, you got to play by our rules. And that's it. But the bigger issue, the bigger thing here is, if you're a private school in Minnesota, if you're a private Christian school in Minnesota, you can still participate in this program. You can say, we're offering this class, that class. Students can enroll at our Christian school to take these. They could take a math class at our Christian school. And the state's saying, yeah, that's fine. We will reimburse you for the amount it's going to cost. That sounds like a win-win for everybody. And the state was now saying, okay, but we're putting a couple easy limitations. Don't force your religion on those kids, and don't discriminate against kids you don't otherwise want on your campus. That's it. And this is not an attack on religious institutions. It's basically a way for the state to make sure taxpayer dollars are not being used to impose religion on kids, and it's not being used to discriminate against kids when the state says discrimination is not allowed, right? By the way, the courses that are offered in the PSEO programs, they cannot be sectarian in nature. So a Christian school cannot offer a class in, like, I think, apologetics, but even the religious schools, they offer English 101. They offer math classes. They offer foreign language classes, and they can still be part of the program and get taxpayer money for that. Okay. So when they passed this budget, immediately after they did that, 2 Christian colleges sued the state. And according to Beckett, which is one of these right-wing groups, today, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signed a bill into law that amends the law. I just said that. Okay. He signed a bill into law that amends the law governing PSEO to exclude religious schools like Northwestern, not the one in Evanston, Illinois, but there is a Northwestern St. Paul College in Minnesota. So it excludes religious schools like Northwestern and Crown from participating because they require a statement of faith from those students who choose to attend their on-campus programs. The statements simply ask students to affirm the school's religious beliefs for the purpose of upholding their Christian communities. Minnesota's sudden change to the law hurts students who want to attend schools that uphold their religious values. If you let these pathetic high school heathens step foot on our campus, they're going to sully the entire campus environment when they are taking Spanish 2. Like, it's the dumbest argument. But they wanted to sue because they're conservative Christian schools, and they're backed by a right-wing group that, of course, wants to sue the state of Minnesota for whatever they can. By the way, let me show you their statements of faith. This is from Crown College. If you scroll down here, this is their website, Our Theology. You got to scroll all the way down. And what does it say here? In their faith statement, living out Christian character also requires us to say no to our sinful nature. And that means they put away sexually immoral behavior. For example, all sexual relations outside the bounds of marriage between a man and a woman. So that's the issue with their statement of faith. They're basically saying if you support marriage equality and you're okay with two men or two women getting married, you're violating our school's rules, and we should have the right to force you to accept our beliefs if you're a high school taking Algebra 1 or something like that. What about the other school, Northwestern St. Paul? This is what they say in their statement of faith. Let me show you this one. We define marriage as being a covenant between one man and one woman. I guess they can be related because they don't say that's not okay. I don't know how it works. Anyway, as followers of Christ, we turn from sexual immorality in its many forms, including but not limited to pornography, premarital sexual relations, adultery, and same-sex romantic intimacy and or sexual relations. If two men hold hands, you are violating our rules. Anyway, let us train you so that you can vote for Donald Trump in the future, because that's a guy who epitomizes our moral beliefs. But okay, those are the faith statements of the school. And again, if they are admitting you into their college as a college student, they have every right to make you sign off on their bullshit and say, you pledge to believe exactly as we do, because the one thing they do not allow at conservative Christian schools is the diversity of thought. Okay, so they sued the state, and basically the right-wing legal group Beckett, they basically said the law is on our side because the Supreme Court has consistently and recently affirmed that if, and I'm paraphrasing here, if you make a benefit open to the public, you can't exclude us for being religious. The PSEO program offers reimbursements to all the colleges in the state if they participate in this program. Well, you can't kick us out just because we happen to be religious. And of course, oh, by the way, in the lawsuit, they even said members of the committee, the Senate Committee on Education Policy, members of the committee stated clearly their intent to exclude religious schools from receiving public dollars. But I know that's bullshit. And the reason I know that's bullshit is because religious schools were still allowed to participate in the program. Like, no one pushed them out. In fact, I don't have it in front of me right here, but I think there were 18 religious colleges in the state of Minnesota that participate in the PSEO program. Only 2 of them require a statement of faith, and it's the 2 that are suing over it. The other religious schools are like, yeah, we're good with your rules because we want the money, and we think we could provide a good education to these high school students, so we want in. So is the state excluding religious schools? No. They're just saying, hey, this is a state-run program, so there are some anti-discrimination rules we want you to follow. And these 2 Christian colleges are like, no, we want to be bigots. It's what we stand for. And they did have a lot to lose if they didn't want to participate in the program. By one metric, I think since 2017, the Northwestern St. Paul School, they had received over $33 million through this program, while Crown College got nearly $6 million. So if they said no to participating in this program, or the state could kick them out because they didn't want to go along with the rules, they stood to lose a lot of money. I want to show you one other thing, which is when this lawsuit was filed in May of 2023, Minnesota has a secular government caucus, which is kind of amazing. And they responded to this lawsuit right here. This is what they said. The state is not restricting these schools from practicing their religious beliefs in any manner. It is merely prohibiting them from using state PSEO dollars to exclude high school students based on their race, creed, etc., sexual orientation, or religious beliefs. Most of the religiously affiliated colleges have not excluded students, and they're not involved in this lawsuit. Religious freedom guarantees all people the right to believe and practice any faith or none at all, and institutions participating in this program must abide by that. kudos to Mike Freiberg, Athena Hollins, Jen McEwen, and John Marty, who are part of that caucus. So that was a great statement. I mean, that's the right way to think about this. And so anyway, that is the story that happened more than 2 years ago when these colleges sued. I will also tell you the Freedom from Religion Foundation filed an amicus brief with the court, basically saying, look, we have nothing to do with this, but we happen to agree with the state of Minnesota. And because this involves stuff we often deal with, we just want to make two key points. And they said, Minnesota's law, the provision in the budget, it does not reflect an organized or malicious effort to target religious schools. It's basically saying students should have equal access when pursuing educational opportunities. Like, the rules are neutral. They're not anti-religious. And FFRF also said the state had a significant interest in not funding or perpetuating discrimination when it comes to publicly funded programs. So FFRF said, it's not our case, but hey, judge, we are lawyers, and here's what we think about this thing you're about to rule on. And here's why we think the state happens to be right. So I happen to think the Christian schools cannot have it both ways. Either you play by the rules and then you can get the money, or you say our statement of faith means we are not going to play by your rules, so we're not going to take part in the program. But you don't get to have it both ways. Okay, so last Friday, a U.S. district judge finally issued her ruling on it. And this is a U.S. district judge named Nancy Brazel. She is a Donald Trump appointee, and that's never good on paper. I will also say, though, she was recommended by Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar. So, like, I didn't necessarily know which way this ruling was going to go. Democrat nominates her, but then Trump, a Democrat recommends her, but then Trump formally nominates her and she gets approved. So what did she say? The short answer is the federal judge said, I'm going to side with the Christian schools. And she said that amendment that said you cannot have a faith statement, or you can't make high school students sign a statement of faith, and you can't discriminate against them if they're LGBTQ. That law is unconstitutional. That's what she said. She said because the faith statement rule is unconstitutional because you're depriving them of their religious characteristics, and because the non-discrimination rule is tied to it, that whole amendment's got to go. And in essence, she argued what the Supreme Court has basically been saying for years now. You don't have to give taxpayer dollars to private schools, but as soon as you do, you cannot say no to religious schools for any reason. And the judge said this amendment did go after religious schools, which is bizarre because, again, there are plenty of religious schools in Minnesota that are still participating in this program because they know they're not excluded from it. So what the hell is the judge talking about? And there was one aspect of this ruling as I was reading it that I'm like, this is weird. And separately, when I heard about this ruling, I reached out to the Freedom from Religion Foundation and I said, hey, do you guys have any statement about what this judge said? And when they responded to me, they said, yeah, here's our statement. And then one of them asked me, hey, did you notice she said this weird thing? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I did. Let me share with you what she said that was very weird. Because she tried to give an analogy to argue that the state said we're not discriminating against religious schools. And the judge is like, yeah, you are. Let me try to give you an analogy of what I'm talking about. Look at this. An illustration is helpful. Northwestern requires their high school applicants to agree to a declaration of Christian community by which applicants attest to honor Christ, seek Christ-centered community, and stand together against all that the Bible clearly condemns. Right, that is their statement of faith. That's what the state said. You can't make high schoolers sign this. But look at what the judge says. Such an admissions requirement is basically forbidden by the faith statement ban. Now consider a hypothetical secular private college that participates in the PSEO program. If that secular school, the judge is like, here's me being super smart. If that secular school required that all PSEO applicants attest to honor reason, seek reason-centered community, and stand together against all that rationalism clearly condemns, such an admissions requirement would seemingly not be forbidden by the faith statement ban. Let's think about that for a second. She is saying the rule in the budget says you can't have a faith statement that kids sign off on. The Christian school says we just want you to honor Jesus the way we do. And she's saying a secular school would not be punished if they said we just want you to be good critical thinkers. And she's like, those are the same thing. But you're punishing the religious school for saying you got to believe what we believe against all the gays. But the secular private school that says we just want you to think for yourselves, you're not going to punish them. Which makes you wonder, what the hell does she think happened at Christian schools? Because the religious declaration, by definition, excludes anybody who doesn't belong to their version of Christianity, while the fictional school she made up excludes nobody. Unless you're not, if you're not interested in reason, what are you doing taking a college class? I don't get it. Like, even in her made-up scenario, the secular school doesn't do the thing that the religious schools are doing. I don't get it. She said in a footnote that a devout Christian applicant would be discriminated against at the secular school. But they would not be. Because what high school student is saying, I want to take a college level course, but I don't want to do any reason. I don't want to do any rational thinking. No critical thinking for me. Who does that? Nobody. Like, you're not even good at coming up with an analogy here. I don't understand. Unless you're assuming that belief in God stands in opposition to reason and rationality, which I happen to believe, but I didn't know she wants to admit to that. I don't know. Plenty of Christians would tell you there is no contradiction between their faith and their ability to think rationally and critically. Again, I disagree with that, but plenty of Christians would tell you that. So what the hell are we talking about here? So the question then is, what happens now? For the time being, that means that provision that said schools can't make students sign statements of faith, they can't discriminate, it's gone. It's off the books. It's unconstitutional. That just means those two Christian colleges with statements of faith, they can still participate in the program. And if a student wants to take a class at their school, they can make them sign that statement of faith. That's what happens right now. It's honestly not that big of a deal on paper because they were already doing that. But then the question is the state of Minnesota going to appeal? My guess is they're probably not, because I don't know that this is a hill worth dying on. I guess the question now is, what's more important to Minnesota legislators? Is it to make PSEO money available to as many students and schools as possible, even if that includes a couple of religious schools that are really bigoted when it comes to gay people? Or do they want to limit where students can go? Because there is a legal way to get around this. You just say, if you want to participate in the PSEO program, you got to be a public college or university. The downside of doing that is that you would be shutting out all these private schools, private religious schools that are perfectly fine because you stand on the principle of discrimination is bad. And the problem with doing that is that for some students in some parts of Minnesota who would have to take these classes on campus, the private religious school may be their only option. And so do you really want to cut those kids off from participating in this program by just saying the money's only available if you're a public college or university? I don't think Minnesota has any appetite to do that. And so this feels like, all right, if it just means we got to let these two bigoted schools participate, maybe we just let that happen. I don't know what they're going to choose. I don't think they're going to change the law. I think Minnesota, one of their chambers is now Republican majority anyway, so it's not going to pass even if they wanted to. But I don't think they're going to appeal. For what it's worth, the Freedom from Religion Foundation told me if Minnesota does appeal this, they will once again file an amicus brief asking the court to side with the state. But I don't think it's going to do that. FFRF did issue one statement that said no school should get a license to discriminate on the public dime. And they urged the Minnesota legislature to step in and make sure that only public schools are allowed to participate in the program. I understand why they're saying that. I don't think Minnesota is going to do that. But I mean, the ruling is frustrating, but I do think it tells you it's a moral indictment of those Christian schools, isn't it? Like, it tells you what they're willing to do to secure public funding while enshrining their right to discriminate, because they are hung up on their ability to make sure students agree with them that gay marriage is wrong, same-sex marriage is wrong, that trans people don't exist. And they're hung up on that. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want taxpayer dollars while doing whatever they can to make life harder for people who are already vulnerable. I don't think that's religious freedom. I think that's taxpayer subsidized prejudice. I think if you're a Christian school that wants to be bigots, you should have to do it on your own dime. You should not get public funding if you want to play the game and get money, even if you are helping other students out. So anyway, frustrating decision. I don't know what else Minnesota can do about it right now, though. Okay, I'm going to stop there. What other questions we got here? Poor Minnesota. I know. They've been through a lot this week. They had their 2 lawmakers assassinated. I mean, it's been a shitty situation in that state for a while. Thank you for that donation, Riri. I appreciate it. Thank you. Where all the rest of you are also welcome to donate. More and more, I pity these people. Thanks, Dusty Dark Horse. I cannot imagine life constantly hating and fearing other people, feeling victimized. Whenever anyone wants you to treat people well, don't they have real problems? I know no one suffers more in our society than conservative Christians. It is amazing to me that you have a statement of faith you need students to sign, and then, like, at the bare minimum, you just said, we hope you agree with, like, Jesus's moral teachings. But no, they get into the weeds. Like, we need you to pledge that you're definitely against gay people getting married. That is one of the rules of our religion that we need you to sign off on. That statement of faith, I don't even know if it says, like, you got to believe Genesis is a book you should take literally. The world was created in 6 days. No. That one's fine. That one's up for debate. But when it comes to gay people, we have very strict rules about it. And we need high schoolers to sign off on it if you want to take French too. It sounds dumb, but this is what they care about. Yeah, this analogy hypothetical doesn't stand up. Guess she attended a religious university. You know what? I don't know where she attended, but now I'm curious. You can look it up and get back to me. Can we do another collective eye roll at this point? We can. Get out the sigh as well. All right. Couldn't they look at it as an outreach opportunities, get the heathens to come to you? That is one thing. If you get rid of the faith statement and make it easier for people to take classes at your religious school, you would think that is just good marketing for your school and a way to reach people who might not otherwise consider it. But no, they want to limit the pool to people who agree with them, or people who are willing to lie and say they agree with them. They're okay with that too. Lying is fine as long as you do it for Jesus. That's a good message to send the 16-year-olds taking your classes. I mean, do you ever do posts about military soldiers going through this shit? You're going to have to be specific what you mean by this shit. I have talked about military soldiers dealing with Christian nationalism in the military and higher ranking officials in the military imposing faith upon them. That comes up every now and then. I've talked about it a little bit as those stories come through. All right, I got a couple more things and then I'm done. I will tell you for the next story here, I wanted to show you a video of what a Republican candidate did, and there was like no way to show you what she was doing that would not punish this channel in particular. So you'll have to forgive me if I use code words to try to explain what the hell she was doing. But basically, in a video that was posted on X or Twitter or whatever, there is a Republican named Valentina Gomez. She is running for Congress from the 31st district in Texas, which is a super red district. It's one of those districts where if you win the Republican primary, you are going to Congress. And this woman is running for that primary. She decided to set fire to a holy book of Islam in order to send the message that she would end Islam across the state. And I'm not going to play the video for you for obvious reasons, but I will show you what she tweeted because holy crap, she's nuts. By the way, this post was so bad that Elon Musk's Twitter was like, we got to limit the visibility on this because it's hateful. But look at this. I will end Islam in Texas, so help me God. And then she says horrible things about Muslims, like not extremists, not ones that are committing crimes, just Muslims. Yikes. They're trying to take over Christian nations. They're not, but also why is that all capitalized? That's messed up. Help me get to Congress so you never have to bow down to their stupid rock. Which, listen, this is not the point. I just want to say this. I have very strong opinions when it comes to religion and religious beliefs across the board. But if I were ever to run for political office, you know what I realize that means? That means a lot of my constituents would also be religious, and I would represent them. So that means, regardless of what I believe about religion, it's no longer a platform for me to trash their faith or criticize their beliefs. That's something I can do now because I'm not running for office. But if you're going to represent people who disagree with you, doesn't mean you have to agree with them. But it means, okay, well, I need to make sure you feel like I am doing a solid job of representing you. Who is this person who's running for Congress who's like, help me get to Congress so I can trash my Muslim constituents because screw them? Unbelievable. But this is what works for Republicans. And you can see from the picture, that would be the Quran on fire. And that's her holding a flamethrower like she's cosplaying, I don't know, Star Wars? I mean, it's just nuts. She took a flamethrower to the book to symbolize how much she really hates Muslims. And by the way, that same video, if you want, if you want to see this picture, that's her doing the deed. And then this is how she ends the video. This made me laugh a little bit. Valentina Gomez. I don't know what that eye is supposed to be. Is that a pencil, a makeup pencil? I don't know. I don't get it. Valentina Gomez for Congress, powered by Jesus Christ. Like, I don't know. I don't know a lot about Jesus. I don't remember the flamethrower bit in the Gospels. Is that a bullet? That looks like a very long bullet, but I guess you're right. That is a bullet. Okay, you win. That's frightening. Glad we have Jesus and a bullet in the same end screen. That's wonderful. Wow. Thank you, Dan, for that specificity. I know too much about her now. Yikes. Okay. Anyway, subtlety is not this woman's strong suit. Just to get some obvious stuff out of the way. If you are equating all Muslims to terrorists, that is bigotry. That's just wrong. What the hell is wrong with you? And that would be bad if you're a random troll on Twitter. What the hell is a congressional candidate doing saying that stuff? She suggested America is a Christian nation. She said Christian, all caps. It is not. It hasn't been. It never was. It never will be. There isn't a God. I can say that. And also, if you're using a flamethrower on a single book, that feels like overkill. I don't have a lot of experience, but I feel that there are easier ways to dispose of a book than sticking a flamethrower on it, but I guess it won't get the clicks. And look, I don't particularly care for the fact that she desecrated the Quran on camera. I don't care. I think that's legal, assuming that is her copy of the book that she has for reasons. I obviously don't care about people burning a book. It's symbolic. You can burn a flag. You can burn a book. It's not illegal. It should not be illegal. But the meaning behind it should disturb all of us because she wants her symbolic act of hate to inspire people to do actual physical harm to Muslims, because that's the only reason you do this stuff. Like, I swear, I hope that no mosque is going to be set on fire. But if it happens, I'm sure it won't be hard to connect the dots between the sort of thing she's doing and what she clearly wants people to do in real life. Because we know how she wants them to treat Muslims. I mean, her whole MO is dehumanizing other people. There was another video I wanted to play for you. I'm not going to play it for you. But earlier this year, Muslims in Texas held a rally or an event of sorts outside the Texas Capitol. It was legal. They had a permit to do it. That was fine. She decided to show up cosplaying as a Muslim, like wearing a fake hijab, and had access to the podium. And as soon as she got in front of the microphone, she started spewing all this vile speech against Muslims there. But this is what she does. She's just a hateful person. Now, if you think everything she's doing is just about grabbing attention, yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's not even the first time she's done something like this. It turns out she was running for Secretary of State in Missouri in 2024. And this is from an article about what she did in that campaign. Gomez first made national headlines in February when she set LGBTQ inclusive books on fire with a flamethrower, pledging to ban such books if she were elected Missouri Secretary of State. In the video, she said, "These books come from a Missouri public library. When I'm in office, they will burn." She's like an actor who only has one character she knows how to play, and all of the characters are batshit crazy. So how did she do in that Missouri Secretary of State race? Well, in the GOP primary, she finished 6th out of 8 people. She was too insane, even for Republicans in Missouri. Like, my God. And that means a whole bunch of Republicans in Missouri saw her and they're like, no way in hell. You are insane, lady. Like, but not all of them. She got some votes. She beat 2 people. How bad do you have to be to lose to her in a Republican primary? What were those guys burning with their flamethrowers? That's not the only thing she did. Let me show you another tweet from her. She shared this video too that I will not play for you. That would be her using a gun on basically a crash test dummy. And she said, "Hey guys, pretend this is a migrant who did a crime." And then she shot the dummy. And this is the president of Colombia chiming in, saying she is not just a fascist American, she's Colombian. And being a migrant, what she wants is to unleash hatred toward migrants. The majority of Americans are killed by Americans. So Valentina Gomez is an immigrant who really hates other immigrants somehow. She is a failed clout-chasing carpetbagger who only has this one move. But being a failure, it doesn't matter what you're running for. Even if you fail to win public office, that still could be your key to success in the conservative world. And I wonder if that's what she's actually doing here. She lost a race in Missouri badly, but she got attention for what she did. Now she moved to Texas. Maybe she thinks Texas is more crazy than Missouri. And now she's doing the same playbook where she does something insane with her flamethrower to rile people up, hoping that she could win the Republican primary there. But if she loses, maybe she thinks, by the time I'm done with this, I'm going to get my spot as a commentator on Fox or Newsmax or whatever it is. Because if you're a Republican, you can only fail upwards. Just ask Riley Gaines, the swimmer who took 5th place once and hasn't shut up about it ever since. So the concern for me, it's not that she's going to win the GOP primary even in Texas, because the person who has that seat right now is a conservative Republican who is an incumbent. He's running for re-election. He's probably going to win the GOP primary again. But it does say something about conservative Christians and their brand, that this lady thinks, if I do this, if I stick a flamethrower to a Quran, maybe I can win over some of these conservative Christian voters. And if she thought that about your group, there is something wrong with your group. Like her Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, has already vowed to prosecute people who burn an American flag, but they have nothing to say. I have yet to hear Republicans chime in to, condemn her for her symbolic destruction of something that's taken seriously by other people. Again, I don't generally have a problem with book burning, but I do want to know what the reason is you're doing it. If it's an act of protest because someone said you're not allowed to do it, okay, let's have that conversation. But if you're doing it because you hate this group of people and you can't physically hurt them because that's a crime now, but you could do it to something they hold dear, now your motives say a lot more about you, and I don't have to support that. It also says a lot about our broken media ecosystem that I think it frustrates me to no end that elected Democrats are called to answer anytime some idiot online or some provocative progressive kid on a college campus said something that is inflammatory. Like, oh, they said it at a protest. Hey, Chuck Schumer, what are your thoughts on this? Because this is your party. You have to answer for it. Every Democrat has to answer for every idiotic thing some other progressive says. But elected Republicans never have to answer for anything their own candidates say or do. How many crazy things has Trump said that elected Republicans never get asked about? Here's a Republican running for Congress, and not a single Republican, I don't think, right now has been asked, hey, what do you think about the crazy lady who set fire to the Quran? Are you supportive of that? What's wrong with your party? They don't get asked anything like this because she's not an extremist as far as Republican candidates go. I think she knows damn well that cruelty is a virtue as long as you say you're doing it in the name of Jesus and as long as you're aiming your flamethrower at the right enemies. She's a grifter. And she knows that if Trump is leading your party, no one cares about decency. They don't care about competence. It's just a race to the bottom to see who can do the nastiest shit in terms of religious bigotry to non-Christian groups. Like, I wish, I sometimes hear from people from other countries that are like, what the hell is going on in America right now? And the answer is, I'm sorry. Save me a place. Save me a room so I can move there with you. Like, if our country was in a healthier place, politically, spiritually, people like her would be disavowed by everybody in a position of power. Instead, she has calculated, rightly so, I'm afraid to say, that there is a market for her brand of hate, and there's a pulpit ready to hear it, and a base that is going to view her as a warrior for Christianity instead of some crazy lady who has no actual thoughts worth considering. She made this video because she knew she would get support for putting it up there. And in far too many corners of the Republican and evangelical worlds, she has gotten that support. All right, I'm going to pause there. What other questions we got here? And she still bought the book. Did she, though? I did wonder about that. Where'd she get a copy of this Quran? She didn't say, and I do wonder where she got it from. What would she think if her opponent burned a Bible? Right? Right. If anyone else pulled the same shit, but they did it against Christianity, or, again, I said this earlier, if Gavin Newsom starts talking like Trump, all of a sudden conservatives get mad about it, even though it's a joke. But that's the thing. If Democrats ever acted the way Republicans are, if Democrats ever treated Republicans the way Republicans treat Democrats, Republicans would flip out. Do you see? This happens all the time. Anytime Republicans talk about people in New York or Los Angeles or a big blue city like Chicago, they trash it to no end. It's a shitty place. The coastal elites, we can ignore them. That's not real America. But you will never hear a Democrat say like, what? Wichita, Kansas? Screw those people. Who cares who lives there? You will never hear that. One, because they don't think that. But two, because Democrats are held to a higher standard by everybody. So you can't write off a part of the country, even if they're not for you politically. It's always this double standard. Republicans are held to no standard. Democrats are always held to the highest standard. And I've said this before. I think Dan Savage said this online. Democrats should not only exist to set a good example for Republicans. It is unbelievable that Republicans are not held accountable for the shit they actually do, while Democrats are punished for shit they never do. How much of the Cracker Barrel controversy you heard about this week involved Republicans getting mad over something that Democrats had nothing to do with? And then they just pretended this is a woke thing. Like, no, Cracker Barrel tried to modernize, and then the right got mad, and then the right blamed it on Democrats somehow. It's infuriating. As someone from outside the US, it looks like a mess. Why the bigots got the loudest volume setting? Because, listen, blame Rupert Murdoch, blame Nigel Farage, blame whoever you want, but we have a media ecosystem and an entire political party and a lot of powerful religious groups that reward the worst behavior from the worst people. And that's it. I mean, in other countries, they realized, oh, we should never let that happen. So we should nip it in the bud before it gets worse. And listen, some of the countries like Britain right now, they're in danger of letting the crazy people take over. I'm not saying I like what their politicians are doing right now, but I promise you it can get so much worse. Oh, what else? You do look good in that shirt. Why, thank you. It's blue. I appreciate the donation to help me get more shirts. Listen, I wear the same like two things over and over. I'm surprised you're seeing me in a different shirt, frankly. I have one costume for life. I'm done shopping. Hello, everyone. Release the Epstein files now. Thank you. Agreed. All right. I got one last story for you. This is a relatively quick one, I think. And I don't actually know what I want to say about this, but I was shocked to hear this. So the Freedom from Religion Foundation posted this story the other day, and I had not known this happened. I don't think they knew it happened either, because it concerns something that happened back in May. And this is what FFRF posted. A concerned Spartanburg School District 1 parent, this is in South Carolina, reported that on May 20th, students graduating from Landrum High School received a senior packet assembled by the school, which contained a letter from South Carolina State Representative Josiah Magnuson. Okay, so the seniors who are graduating, they get this packet of stuff, and in it is a letter. And let's look at this letter for a second, because, okay, it's an official letter from his House of Representatives letterhead, dated May 15th. And I know the typing here, it's not the best quality of a scan, but okay, congrats on graduating. That's nice. The world is changing. I encourage you to continue learning. That sounds fine. What's happening here? Be mindful to acknowledge and honor the omnipotent person who our founders sacredly named in the Declaration of Independence as nature's God, the creator, the supreme judge of the world, and divine providence. Our country's history underscores that liberty is sacred because it is his gift. and it is only in his presence that we find the courage we need for the journey. I will pause there for a second. Can you imagine graduating high school and having this lawmaker send you a letter saying, you know how you were taught in your history classes, your government classes about church-state separation and the foundation of our country? Well, guess what? I happen to think it is all bullshit. And let me tell you, you've been lied to. It's really all about Jesus. And of course, this lawmaker is wrong about all of this. But let us carry on. Our national motto reminds us, in God we trust. Our national motto since the 1950s, when we just decided to shove God into everything. To trust God, we need to prioritize getting to know him. Why are you telling me this? I'm graduating from high school. I urge you to read and meditate on his word. This is a weird thing to send to the atheists in this high school, the Muslims in this high school. I'm sure it's South Carolina and the majority is Christian, but also I'm sure a lot of the Christians are like, dude, I don't need this from you. I try to skip church when I can. What are you doing? And then he goes on to talk about God even more. In sum, I encourage you to stay flexible yet resolve to do right. Take initiative, make the hard decisions, move forward boldly, blah, blah, blah. Contact me if you need anything. Congratulations. Why is this guy sending this letter to those high school students at this school? I don't know if he just sent it to this one high school. I don't know if this letter was something he sent to every high school in his district or what. But also, why did the high school include this letter in a packet that they sent to students? Because what message is it sending? One, that your history and government classes were wrong about everything. Two, that if you're Muslim or Hindu or an atheist, screw you, you're doing something wrong. Why would you allow this? Who decided to give an okay to put this piece of crap letter in their stuff? That makes absolutely no sense. And that's why the Freedom from Religion Foundation decided to send a letter to the school district saying, hey, we just found out about this, but what the hell are you doing? And then I was wondering, like, I had not heard a lot about this Josiah Magnuson. And so I looked this guy up. One, he's way younger than I am, and that's disturbing too, because that letter could only have been written by a 97-year-old Republican. And this guy's like a 12-year-old Republican. But one of the things I wanted to share with you is this disturbing anecdote that was on Wikipedia. In 2019, during a debate on a heartbeat bill, which would basically ban abortion like at 6 weeks or something like that, Nancy Mace, now the Congresswoman, one of Magnuson's Republican colleagues in the South Carolina House at the time, argued in favor of adding a rape and incest exception to the bill, which is the least you could do if you're going to ban abortion. And she related her own experience of having been abused at age 16. Magnuson later distributed a series of postcards to each desk in the House that stated in part, it is a twisted logic that would kill the unborn child for the misdeed of the parent. Holy crap. Listen, Nancy Mace is a horrible human being. But if she's saying, listen, I was abused when I was a child, and I think if you're going to ban rape in the state of, if you're going to ban abortion in the state of South Carolina, the least you could do is have exceptions for victims of abuse. And then this guy says, how dare you punish the unborn child for the misdeed of the parent, as if getting assaulted by somebody, sexually assaulted, is a misdeed on the victim's part. What the hell is wrong with this 12-year-old? So apparently, I went down a rabbit hole after that. This guy wrote an op-ed for the local paper after he did that. And this is what he said at the beginning. A controversy recently erupted at the State House over a pro-life postcard I distributed on the desk of each representative. The postcard said it is a twisted logic that would kill the unborn child for the misdeed of the parent. A better wording would have been, it is a twisted logic that would kill the unborn child for the crime of the rapist. There, I did it. That's what I meant to say. I apologize for any hurt or confusion that the initial wording caused, and I will strive to be more careful. And that's his way of saying, you guys, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say the victims deserved it or that it matters what they're wearing. I just want to punish women who want to get a healthcare procedure. See, I'm the good guy. That's what this dude thinks is a mea culpa. By the way, there's one other thing you should know about this dude. This is from Rolling Stone, but this was an article from, what's the date on this? 2023. Members of the South Carolina State House are considering a bill that would make a woman who has an abortion in the state eligible for the death penalty. Yeah, I think like 24 South Carolina Republicans tried to pass a bill that would murder women who have abortions in the state. And of course, Magnuson is one of the dudes who thought this would be a good idea. No apology on that one. He totally wants women who get abortions to be murdered by the state because, you know, he's just a good God-loving dude who wants high schoolers to buy into his God. I haven't even heard of this guy, but this is just typical Republican state lawmaker for you at this point. Just insane. I want to murder women who have abortions because I'm the good Christian. That's what this guy is doing with his power. It is insane. And I'm only saying that, like, you can go down the rabbit hole too. I'm sure you have guys like this in your state. You should find out who they are. You should support whichever candidates are running against them. I hope that might be you one day. But I will say there is a happy ending to this particular story, which is that FFRF announced after they sent a letter saying, hey, school district, why the hell are you sending this letter in kids' packets? The superintendent confirmed via email that he had taken action regarding the issue. I have already had a phone conference with a concerned parent about the situation, and I explained to this parent our new processes that we will implement this school year to make sure graduation materials that are distributed to students have been properly vetted and approved by school administration. Okay, so the school's like, yeah, that was RB. We will make sure that letter never slips through again because from now on, we're going to vet the letters. And it does say something about South Carolina's legislature that a member of the state legislature could say, hey, I have a message I want to send to high school graduates. And now this school district has to be like, oh, that's nice of you. We're going to have to check it first to make sure it's school appropriate because you are a Republican in the legislature. So we can't be assured of that. You're a guy who likes state-sanctioned murder and you think sexual abuse victims were calling for it. They deserved it. Their misdeeds. Anyway, so yay for the happy ending, but also, oh my God, there are guys like this in politics. And then you look up, in some of these cases, you look up how many votes did they win by? And it's always like the smallest amount because no one ever wants to run for office, the people who are actually qualified to do it. So you get conservative zealots like this dude who are like, you know what God wants me to do? He wants me to run for every possible position in my community. And then they get elected and this is what they do with it. This is why America is so broken right now. All right, I'm going to stop there. What other questions we got? Otherwise, I think that is it for tonight. Yeah. Wow. I agree. Wow, in the worst possible way. Any laws against the men forcefully impregnating women? I mean, they're not getting the death penalty as far as I can tell. I don't think there's a law that says abusers are able to get the death penalty. I think that's reserved for a different kind of crime. But if you're a woman who's like, I can't have this baby for whatever the reason is, it's none of your business. Those are the people this dude wants to murder. All right. Like I said, next week I will be back on Wednesday night, not Thursday, same time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to Den for helping out as always. I can't do this without him. And thanks to you for joining in. Let me just say really quickly, you can always subscribe to the newsletter by going here. You should do that. And if you want to support me personally, you can go to patreon.com/Hemant. I appreciate it. I will see you next Wednesday night. Have a good long holiday weekend.